we're going to solve some nonlinear equations using factor by grouping. We're factoring out the GCF. So solve x squared equals 20x. All right. When it's x squared and an x term with no constant, then get the variables to one side and factor. So minus 20x both sides, and we have x squared minus 20x equals 0. Now, what's the GCF of the terms? Well, it's x, so we can factor out x. We have x times x minus 20 equals 0. Now we can use zero product rule, so we can say x is equal to 0, or x minus 20 is equal to 0. And then we can solve for x here and get x equals 20. And we have x equals 0, or x is equal to 20. So suppose we want to solve 6x squared minus 24x minus 5x plus 20 equals 0. Well, we can try factor by grouping since we see 4 terms. We form our 2 groups. And the GCF of the first group is one factor of x between each term and a factor of 6, so 6x. The next group, we see factors of 5. First term is negative, so factor out negative 5. And we have 6x times x minus 4. And then minus 5 times x minus 4 equals 0. Pull out x minus 4. And you have x minus 4 times 6x minus 5 equals 0. And then we make our 2 equations, so x minus 4 equals 0, and 6x minus 5 equals 0. And then proceed to solve to obtain x equals 4. And 2-step linear equation, remove the constant, remove the coefficient. And those are the solutions. our graphing calculator to solve x squared equals negative 10x? Well, first we want to solve this equation by getting all the terms to one side. So we have x squared plus 10x, and then graph. Alright, so we're trying to find the zeros. So come back to y equals, and our second equation when you're trying to find zeros is you want a y equals 0 equation. So type in 0 and then graph. Alright, and now we don't see how the curves are intersecting. So go to window, or zoom rather, and do zoom standard. Z standard, enter. Alright, so we see our quadratic function, and we do see some intersection here. So we need to zoom out a little bit this way, and maybe a little bit down to see the vertex here. So I'm going to go to window. X min we could make negative about 12, and y min about negative 20. Graph. All right. So we should now go to calc, second, trace, and we can go to intersect, or we can even go to this 0 function here, and if we hit enter for left bound, and then come to the right of where it looks like the 0 occurs, then we hit enter, and then go back into the middle to the guess and hit enter. And sure enough, the 0 is 0, 0. So when x is 0, the graph x squared plus 10x intersects the x-axis, which means x squared plus 10x is equal to 0 when x is equal to 0. For our other 0, let's, go back to the calc menu, back to 0, enter. And let's arrow left to the other 0. Okay. And left bound, so we're to the left of the apparent 0, the intersection of the red and the blue line. Hit enter. And then go to the right. Enter. And then come back to where they appear to intersect for the guess. Hit enter. And the 0 is negative 10, 0. So our solutions are x equals negative 10 and x equals 0. Now we're going to solve x squared equals negative 3x minus 2 with our graphing calculator. So we do some algebra to get all the terms to one side, and then we're solving this quadratic equation. Then we set the expression equal to y in order to put it into our equation list on our calculator. So let's clear everything out. type in our expression, quadratic expression, x squared plus 3x plus 2. And since we're looking for the zeros, we can type in y equals 0 as well, and we'll graph. And z standard. Will probably be a good zoom. Okay. We could zoom in some more using our zoom function. Since it's pretty close, we can see relatively where the zeros are. Go to zoom in, hit enter, and then use the arrow keys to get your cursor over to the intersection of the curves and hit enter. Now use the second and the calc menu to find the zeros. Go to 0 and left of the 0. Enter. Go a bit right of the 0. Enter. And try to get as close to the 0 as you can. And hit enter. So the 0 is -2, as we can see here. Then go back to the calc menu. Back to 0. And then go over to your other point of intersection. Use the arrow keys to bracket in 0. And then get as close to the 0 as you can and hit enter. And we have another 0 of x equals -1. Those are our two solutions, x equals -2 and x equals -1. Our solutions are -2 and -1, as you can verify by plugging into this equation here and noting that you get the same number on both sides, which will be left as an exercise for the viewer.